At the age of 80, Burt Lancaster, one of the brightest stars of the silver screen, revealed secrets he had kept hidden his entire life. He loved, he lived, and he concealed romances with famous gay male actors of old Hollywood. And trust me, this story is anything but simple. We're going to explore the life of a legend, the roles that made him a household name, and the secrets Hollywood didn't want you to know. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on more captivating stories. To start, let's find out who Burt Lancaster was. Born on November 2nd, 1913 in Harlem, New York, Burton Stephen Lancaster, or Burt as he was known, grew up in a working-class family. His childhood was far from easy. Harlem in the early 20th century was a vibrant but challenging place, with bustling streets and families working tirelessly to make ends meet. Burt's parents were hard-working, but they didn't have much money. Even so, they always encouraged their children to chase their dreams. From a young age, Burt showed he wasn't an ordinary boy. He had incredible physical strength, an unyielding spirit, and a burning passion for life. Instead of following a traditional academic path, Burt found joy in sports and the circus. Can you imagine it? A tall, muscular young man with a radiant smile, performing daring acrobatics in front of a crowd. Burt worked in circus troupes, where he learned to control his body, face his fears, and captivate an audience. Those years didn't just build his physical strength, they shaped his style on the silver screen. His agility, explosive energy, and ability to perform without a stunt double became Burt Lancaster's trademark. He wasn't just an actor. He was an artist, always ready to push his own limits. Burt's film career began in the 1940s, when Hollywood noticed his striking appearance. Standing over 6 feet 1 inch tall, with chiseled features and piercing eyes, Burt was the ideal leading man for strong, heroic roles. But he didn't want to be just a pretty face. He wanted to prove he could act, that he could bring vivid, memorable characters to life. His first big break came in the 1946 film The Killers, a classic noir based on a short story by Ernest Hemingway. In it, Burt played Ole Swede Anderson, a former boxer caught in a tragic spiral. This role not only launched him to stardom, but also showed he could portray complex characters, people torn apart by fate and emotion. The Killers wasn't just a turning point in Burt's career. It was a statement. He didn't want to play only glamorous heroes. He wanted to dig into the psyche of his characters, to tell stories that mattered. This role made audiences and critics take notice. They began calling him Hollywood's new hero, a man who combined rugged masculinity with deep sensitivity. But Burt didn't stop there. He knew that to truly leave his mark, he needed to do more than act. He needed to control his own story. In the 1950s, Burt did something few actors of his time dared to consider. He founded his own production company, Hecht Hill Lancaster, with 2 friends, Harold Hecht and James Hill. This wasn't just a business decision, it was a revolution. At the time, major studios like MGM and Warner Brothers controlled nearly every aspect of the film industry. From scripts to distribution, actors were often just hired hands, with little say over their roles or career paths. But Burt wouldn't accept that. He wanted freedom, to choose projects that reflected his vision, films that didn't just entertain but inspired and made audiences think. Burt's company produced several notable films, and one of its biggest successes was Marty in 1955. This film was a simple story about love and everyday life, centered on a lonely, middle-aged man searching for meaning. No grand action scenes, no glamorous stars, but Marty touched audiences with its honesty. The film won the Oscar for Best Picture, a victory not just for Burt, but for his vision. He proved that small stories about ordinary people, could have a massive impact. Another film produced by Burt's company was Separate Tables in 1958. This film explored complex human emotions, relationships bound by societal rules, and personal wounds. With a stellar cast and a sharp script, Separate Tables earned widespread praise and further solidified Burt's reputation as a visionary producer. He wasn't just a talented actor, he was a storyteller, someone who dared to challenge the status quo and elevate cinema to new heights. If I had to pick one role that defines Burt Lancaster, I'd say it's Sergeant Milton Warden in From Here to Eternity in 1953. This film is a classic, a story of love, duty, and conflict set during World War II. Burt played a tough but conflicted soldier caught in a forbidden romance with Karen Holmes, played by Deborah Kerr. The scene on the beach in Hawaii, where waves crash over them in a moment of passion, is one of cinema's most iconic images. Can you feel the intensity in that scene? The chemistry between Burt and Deborah wasn't just acting. There was a real attraction, a deep connection that audiences could sense in every glance, every touch. Though they were just colleagues, they delivered a performance that the world would never forget. From Here to Eternity wasn't just a commercial success. It won 8 Oscars, including Best Picture, and showcased Burt's ability to bring raw emotion to the screen. Burt's career continued to shine with unforgettable roles. In 1960, he won his first Oscar for Elmer Gantry. In this film, he played a charismatic but morally conflicted ex-con, a man both charming and terrifying. The role was an emotional whirlwind, impossible to look away from. Burt delivered a performance brimming with energy, both captivating and complex, proving he could master any character. Just 2 years later, he won a second Oscar for Birdman of Alcatraz in 1962. Here, he played Robert Stroud, a criminal who becomes a prison reformer and bird expert. This role revealed a softer, deeper side of Burt, showing he could convey tenderness and depth even in the harshest fitting circumstances. He didn't just act, he lived his characters, making audiences believe they were watching a real person, not a role. These roles weren't just personal triumphs. They showed Burt's fearlessness. He didn't want to repeat himself. He chose flawed, wounded characters who still found ways to rise. And that's why he was loved. Audiences didn't just see a star on the screen. They saw a human, someone who made them feel the complexities of life, even in later years. As Hollywood changed, Burt kept challenging himself. He starred in The Swimmer in 1968, a surreal and psychological film, and Atlantic City in 1980, where he earned another Oscar nomination as an aging but vibrant gambler. These roles showed Burt never stopped growing, never stopped seeking new stories to tell. But Burt Lancaster wasn't just a talented actor. He was a man with a big heart and strong principles. In an era when Hollywood often shied away from politics, Burt spoke out. He was an active advocate, supporting the civil rights movement and fighting injustice. He believed art could change the world, and he used his voice to back the causes he cared about. One of his most memorable moments was when he and his second wife, Norma Anderson, hosted a fundraiser for Martin Luther King Jr. before the historic 1963 March on Washington. This act showed not just Burt's courage, but his willingness to stand up for what was right, even if it stirred controversy. He also championed artists' rights and unions, always fighting for fairness in the film industry. Let's talk about Burt's personal life, because it was as complex and fascinating as his career. Burt married 3 times and had 5 children. His first marriage was to June Ernst, a talented trapeze artist. They met in the circus world, where they shared a passion for acrobatics and performance. June wasn't an ordinary woman. She came from a circus family, with a mother who was a renowned acrobat, an icon in the circus community at the time. Burt and June performed together, their relationship fueled by the shared shows and the adrenaline of the stage. But circus life wasn't easy. Constant touring, financial pressures, and the grueling demands of the profession strained their bond. They parted ways in the late 1930s, with the exact divorce date unclear, sources citing anywhere from 1940 to 1946. This ambiguity only adds to the mystery of Burt's life. After June, Burt married Norma Anderson, a passionate woman devoted to social causes. They met during World War II, when Norma, then an office worker, stepped in for a sick performer in a USO show entertaining American soldiers in Italy. One day, while heading from the airport, Norma spotted Burt in a crowd, instantly drawn to his handsome looks and commanding presence. She turned to a nearby officer and asked, "Who's that handsome officer, and is he married?" That officer, like a fated matchmaker, arranged a date for them that very evening. From that moment, Burt and Norma began a relationship that lasted over 2 decades. Burt and Norma married in 1946 and had 5 children: Bill, James, Susan, Joanna, and Sagal, also known as Sheila. Norma wasn't just a wife, she was a fervent activist, involved with the League of Women Voters and the NAACP. Their home in Bear even had a room dedicated to printing presses and advocacy materials, where Norma worked tirelessly for voting rights and social justice. Burt and Norma shared a passion for justice, hosting events together, including the fundraiser for Martin Luther King Jr. But despite their shared ideals, their marriage wasn't always smooth. The pressures of Burt's career, long trips, Hollywood's glare, and personal struggles led to their separation in 1966 and divorce in 1969. During this period, Burt began a turbulent relationship with Jackie Bone, a hairdresser on the set of The Professionals. Their romance was an emotional whirlwind, passionate but filled with drama. One famous story tells of Jackie smashing a wine bottle over Burt's head at a party attended by big names like director Sidney Pollack and actor Peter Falk. The incident became Hollywood gossip, but it also showed the intensity of their bond. Things ended when Jackie underwent a religious conversion. Burt, with his own complex beliefs, felt unable to align with her new path, and they parted ways. Burt's third marriage was to Susan Martin in 1990. This was a calmer relationship, far from the drama of his past. Susan stood by Burt in his final years as he faced health issues, including heart attacks that had plagued him for years. They lived quietly, largely out of the public eye, and Susan brought Burt comfort in his last days. Burt passed away on October 20th, 1994, in his Century City, Los Angeles apartment after a third heart attack. He died at 80, leaving behind a monumental legacy and an emotional personal story. Now we come to the most shocking part of the story, the part Burt only revealed in his final years. In moments of reflection, looking back on his life, Burt shared with close friends the secret romances he had hidden for decades. In Hollywood's golden age, being gay was taboo, capable of destroying any career. The public and media were unforgiving, and studios went to great lengths to protect their stars' images. But Burt, with an open heart and free spirit, lived true to himself, even if only in the shadows. He revealed he had relationships with some of the most famous men of his era. These stories are shocking not just for their nature, but because they reveal a completely different side of Burt, a man who lived with passion and courage, even at the risk of exposure. First was Cary Grant, one of Hollywood's most charming actors. Burt met Cary in the late 1940s at an industry event. Cary, with his enigmatic smile, polished demeanor, and sharp wit, captivated Burt. They began a brief but emotional affair, meeting secretly at beach houses along the Pacific Coast Highway. Those rare moments were times they could be free, unbound by public scrutiny. But Cary, always fearful of exposure, ended the relationship to protect his image. Burt once said this romance, though short, left him with unforgettable emotions. He remembered Cary as a friend, a lover, and a conflicted soul, torn between truth and the image the world expected. Next is a name even more shocking: J. Edgar Hoover, the powerful FBI director. Not an actor, but Hoover wielded immense influence over Hollywood through his control of law and morality in media. Burt met Hoover at a charity event in Washington, D.C., where power brokers and Hollywood stars mingled. Their relationship wasn't romantic in the conventional sense, but was complex, steeped in power and secrecy. Burt described Hoover as a man craving closeness, yet terrified of himself, a person imprisoned by his own authority. This strange connection gave Burt a unique perspective on one of America's most enigmatic figures. He rarely spoke of Hoover, but what he shared was enough to make us ponder the complexity of human beings and the secrets they carry. Then came Rock Hudson, Hollywood's golden boy with a rugged exterior and a gentle heart. Burt and Rock met on a film set in the early 1950s, both at the peak of their careers. They quickly fell into a deep romance, nurtured through secret trips across vast deserts where they could escape paparazzi. Rock lived in fear of discovery, a fear that later became reality when he died of AIDS in 1985, forcing the world to face the truth he had hidden. Burt remembered Rock as a beautiful soul, someone who craved love but never felt safe enough to embrace it fully. Their relationship ended not for lack of feeling, but because the world wouldn't allow it to exist. Burt always held deep respect for Rock, often speaking of their shared moments with a quiet sadness. Another surprising name was Ricky Nelson, the teen star from The Adventures of Ozzie and Harriet. Ricky was nearly 2 decades younger than Burt, and they met in the early 1960s, as Ricky tried to transition from child star to mature artist. Their relationship was brief but meaningful, especially for Ricky, who saw Burt as a mentor and protector. With his sensitivity, Burt gently ended the relationship, believing Ricky needed time to find himself, both in his career and personal life. He remembered Ricky tenderly, calling him a boy who sang like a breeze and kissed with the longing of someone never allowed to want. Though fleeting, this connection left a lasting mark on Burt, a reminder of youth's fragility. Finally, and perhaps most complex, was Marlon Brando. Marlon was everything Burt wasn't: impulsive, eccentric, rebellious. They met at a Hollywood event in the late 1950s, both major stars with entirely different styles. Their connection was like a storm, intense and irresistible. Marlon, with his sharp intellect, passionate debates, and undeniable charisma, swept Burt into a romance both fiery and chaotic. Burt once said Marlon was the only person who could make him feel utterly captivated with a single glance. Their relationship lasted a few years, with moments of ecstasy mixed with fierce clashes. The secrecy, combined with their strong personalities, ultimately drove them apart. But Burt always held profound respect for Marlon as someone who challenged him in ways no one else could. These hidden romances paint a completely different portrait of Burt Lancaster. Beneath the image of the rugged screen hero was a man who loved deeply, sometimes recklessly, but always in silence. When he revealed these secrets late in life, Burt wasn't seeking attention or scandal. He was seeking liberation, the freedom to be himself after decades of concealment. These stories don't diminish his legacy. They make him more relatable, more human. They remind us that even legends have wounds, desires, and secrets they must carry. Burt Lancaster passed away on October 20th, 1994, in his Century City, Los Angeles apartment, after a third heart attack at 4:50 a.m. He died at 80, leaving behind a monumental cinematic legacy and a deeply emotional personal story. His ashes were scattered under a large oak tree in Westwood Memorial Park, California, with a small plaque engraved with his name, Burt Lancaster, 1913–1994. Per his wishes, no memorial or funeral was held, but his legacy lives on through films that changed how we see cinema, through courageous acts for justice, and through the story of a man who lived true to his heart at a cost. Burt Lancaster's story is one of talent, courage, and human complexity. He was a star, an activist, a storyteller, and a man who loved in secret during a time when it could have destroyed everything. Looking back, we see not just a Hollywood legend, but a man who lived fully, with all the joy, pain, and secrets he carried. Burt's story reminds us that behind the glamour are untold stories, stories of humanity, love, and the courage to live authentically. Thank you for staying with me through this long journey. I hope Burt Lancaster's story has brought you emotions, reflections, and a bit of awe about the secrets of old Hollywood. Share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of Burt's revelations? Do you have a favorite film of his? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss our next videos, where we'll keep uncovering the hidden stories of great stars. See you in the next video. Have a wonderful day.